Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the webinar from AHRER, Association of Harm Reduction Education and Research. So we are here today to have a few words upon the upcoming amendments which have been proposed by the government for the COTPA Act. So this has been been there since last year, and a lot of debate has been going on. It has been passed through, but it should be going through soon. So we are just here to talk about the impact of it and what we see as changes, which may be good, which may be bad. So we have with us Dr. Aruna Kumari, we have Dr. Vikas Jain, Dr. Prem Kumar, and we'll also be soon joined by Dr. Aparajeet after some time. I am Dr. Kiran Melkote. Okay, I think we can begin. So let's start with Dr. Vikas. Do you have any thoughts on this act?
A couple of things. The first thing was, to my mind, selling packs instead of loose cigarettes would go against people who are trying to cut down on their cigarette smoking rates. So this is one thing that did come to my mind. Upping the age to 21, yes, something good, maybe. But enforcement of the law is more important than anything else. So these are two things that came to my mind. First, offhand.
I understand. Okay. So, Dr. Aruna, would you like to add something?
Yeah, that's upping the age for 21 is really welcome move. But practical problems, we must look at it because we have seen more number of people dying before the age of 21. Smokeless tobacco users, especially the youth, who actually begin maybe along with their milking stage also. Okay, they are introduced to these products. So how to educate them? That's a very big problem. The mothers who are into the habit, whenever they are chewing some tobacco, they are giving it to the children. So that's how this SLT is being introduced in their lives at a very, very early age. And it's very disheartening to see them. So a law which enforces, and also at the same time, we need a lot of education to see the better of this law.
Thank you. Dr. Prem, would you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to give a brief overview, in particular the salient features of the earlier COTPA, which is the Cigarette and Other Tobacco Products Act, so that it will be easier for us to understand the differences between the earlier COTPA and the present proposed amendments. And then we can discuss maybe the pros and cons. So I would say the salient features of the earlier COTPA were it prohibited use of cigarettes in public places. It prohibited sale of cigarettes to minors, and minors were defined as those less than 18 years of age. And sale of cigarettes were prohibited in not just cigarettes, even smokeless forms of tobacco were prohibited within 100 yards of any educational institution. And there had to be a mandatory pictorial warning on cigarette packets and other tobacco products, which had to occupy at least 85% of that cigarette packs. So I would say these are the salient features in the earlier COTPA. Now coming to the amendments that have been proposed, now the age of minors, I mean the age below which tobacco products cannot be sold has been increased from 18 to 21. So that is number one, that a very important change that we've seen. Number two, these amendments lay greater emphasis on indirect advertisement of tobacco products. Now, a very important thing here is that advertisements at the point of sale, all those small shops where they display the cigarettes or any hoardings, now that has been made into a cognizable offense here. Also, selling of loose cigarettes, that has also been made into a cognizable offense. So that is again an important change. Another change is that earlier it used to be 100 yards of an education institution. Now the radius has been increased to 100 meters. You are not supposed to sell any tobacco products within 100 meters of an education institution. Also, it touches upon the establishment of a dedicated laboratory to measure the amount of nicotine and tar in each of these tobacco products. So these were some of the important changes that I noticed from the earlier COTPA to this COTPA. So maybe we can discuss each one of these in detail.
Okay. Yeah, so I would also like to add one more thing. So basically, to begin with, I have a problem with the name itself. if you look at the name of the act itself, it says COTPA stands for Cigarettes and Other, it actually stands for Cigarettes and Other Tobacco Products Act. In India, it should be Other Tobacco Products first.
Okay.
We have
more than 70% smokeless tobacco.
Yes.
No, not more than 70%. It's
78%.
Much higher.
Much. I'll give you
Only
numbers.
7% are smokers.
267 million total users of tobacco in our country. 267 million, 26.7 crores. 20 crores are smokeless tobacco.
Okay.
And of that remaining 6.7 crores, you have around 2.8 crores who smoke cigarettes. So out of 26 crores, you have 2.7 crores who smoke cigarettes. So not even 10%. Okay, maybe close to 10%. And you can't name the act after just about 10% of the problem. So that's, starting from there, I have major problems. The other problem is, I think, age is a problem, because how can somebody vote at 18? What is the concept of voting at 18? You're an adult. Presumably so. You have, some sort of responsibility. And if you can vote, then, and you can drive. So I don't see why suddenly you'll get some sort of enlightenment at 21 that makes you eligible to drink and smoke. So this false dichotomy of age is something either you have it or you don't have it. So you can make everything at 21 if you dare, or you make everything at 18. Because otherwise, in one way, you're saying that you're not old enough to smoke or drink, but you are old enough to vote and drive. So, that actually puts a lot of confusion. So it stems from the whole concept that, we have a government and policymakers who look upon the general citizens with a little bit of contempt. So they treat us like children. So that stems from all, Anyway, that's a sort of a larger discussion for another day. The other thing is regarding the surrogate ads. That's a very good point Dr. Prem Kumar brought out. So earlier, all these companies would bypass the restrictions on ads by branching out into other sort of products. So we all know the various other products that these companies would advertise, and it was generally accepted. It was accepted as a surrogate for the real product. Now the point of sale ads. So do you have any thoughts on point of sale ads? Now, let's say you're a shopkeeper. This is open to all. Let's say you're a shopkeeper and you want to display the products that you have in the store. I can understand it's a cigarette or it's one of the smokeless tobacco varieties. The government now says you can't display even what you're selling. So is that fair to the small shopkeepers?
From a small shopkeeper's perspective, definitely it's going to affect his business and have an adverse impact on his or her livelihood. That is without any doubt.
So what do we hope to achieve by this clause?
Maybe nothing. I would say that as with the surrogate advertisement for alcohol, you have CDs and you have sparkling water. The advertisement will be the same. These tobacco companies will come up with something like chewing gum or flavored soft with the same name, and those will be advertised.
No, that is fine. That is not my point. I'm talking about the cigarette shops.
Yes.
The point of
they will put up
from a consumer.
They'll put up Will's chewing gum.
Yeah, now that is not supposed to be done.
Banned. That is
banned in the amendment. You're not supposed to do that. You're not even supposed to use any color patterns or any layouts.
Yeah, you can't use the same logo,
that would resemble any tobacco product or any brand or trademark. That should not be done. So that focus on the surrogate ads is more in these amendments. And coming back to Dr. Kiran, so first you made the point why it should be cigarette and other tobacco and not other tobacco and cigarettes. Now the problem here is that cigarette has this issue of secondhand smoke, right? So cigarette users, apart from harming themselves, they also harm others when they smoke in a public place. Other tobacco products, well, there is this issue of spitting, and that could potentially lead to spread of communicable diseases. But secondhand smoke impinges on the right to health of other citizens, right?
One point. I'll stop you right there. Okay, then why not BDs and other products? Other tobacco products. BDs are twice the number of cigarettes.
Yeah.
8 crore BDs.
Sure.
Yes.
I meant smoking forms of tobacco. So it should have been smoking forms of tobacco rather than cigarettes. But so that is one thing that I wanted to address. And the second thing about the age, why 18 has been raised to 21. Now there are several studies in the literature that say that earlier the initiation of any substance, be it tobacco or any substance for that matter, carries worse prognosis later in life. A person who has initiated a substance use earlier in life is more likely to go into dependence later in life. There is literature supporting this. And young minds are impressionable, and they are more vulnerable for novelty seeking. So they are inherently more curious, and they're also more susceptible for novelty seekings. And they're also more prone to peer pressure, adolescents and late adolescents. So I personally feel that increasing the age is actually a step in the right direction. So that is my personal opinion. And I base it on the evidence that is available in the medical literature, especially in several de-addiction studies that say that later the onset of initiation, even in GATS2 survey, they have emphasized that point, that the initiation of age, the age of initiation for both smoking forms and smokeless forms of tobacco has increased compared to the GATS1 survey by at least 1 year. So that is an important feature upon which these policymakers are focusing, I feel. And as far as the point of sale advertisement is concerned, I would like to bring your attention to what is known as cues. So there are various visual cues that can increase craving for a person. A person just comes home. He's motivated to quit a substance. He just comes home, sees an ad or sees a cigarette packet, something that immediately, that is called as cue craving. The cues actually induce the craving in the person to actually start smoking. So perhaps to reduce that cue craving, the government has actually gone ahead with making point of sale advertisements and display of cigarettes a cognizable offense. So that would be my arguments on behalf of the government.
Okay, I am very glad to have my mind changed on the age part, and you have given a very, very reasoned argument. So I think I'll be glad to agree with you that, okay, 21 is a reasonable age that way. I agree. But I would still like to play the devil's advocate here. See, we are all basically anti-tobacco, right? But to have a meaningful debate, we have to look at these, and we have to also look at their unintended effects. So any sort of legislation, whatever it is geared for, we have to also look at what are going to be its on the ground consequences. So see, problem again, if you go into the age part, that is fine. Okay, you're actually saying that. Queues, okay, fine. You can have plain packaging. You don't have any point of sale boards. Ultimately, why can't we straight away ban cigarettes? You are throttling it slowly. But while you're doing it slowly, there are 1.35 million people every year dying in India. 1.35 million, 13.5 lakhs. So why can't we just ban it? Now you're trying to turn everybody into a criminal. You're actually making it more and more difficult. So government, this I had actually written about some time back also, where they go after all these ancillary aspects of smoking indoors, bans, can't smoke while driving, can't smoke in restaurants. They have never said you can't smoke. Why can't you take that next step and say you just can't smoke? Over to you.
Revenues. Where will the revenues go from? They can't say you can't smoke. It's all.
And not just for the government, even for the tobacco farmers, even for those
everybody,
shopkeepers.
A lot of things.
So there are multiple factors involved, right? So
again, as you said, devil's advocate, I'd just like to put up a question. What would be what would you feel is the age that children actually start experimenting with all of these things? Is it 21? Is it 18? Or is it much younger?
Much younger.
So when they start experimenting at that age, what are you going to do by putting up the age as 21?
But that's a good right. That's right move in the right direction, because You don't make things available for them. Now it's available. And the other one is also the smokeless tobacco products, which are much cheaper. They are not branded, and they're easily available. So, and that's a huge market. And see, it because of its easy availability, because of its lesser cost, and because they're not named. What product is actually used also is not named. So it is so raw stages that it's available for them. And I think so uh, like once the licensed products are available, then maybe we can cut short this habit, because we really don't know. We cannot have any access to the problem, where it is starting, how many are into it. So until
you would be able to come up with figures as to what is the urban and rural load of tobacco consumption. If it is the rural community has more smokeless tobacco consumption, do you actually think that any law, if it comes into power also, do you think it is going to be executed?
Enforcement is a very important aspect here for any law, yes. Not just.
So enforcement of this law at the rural level is, I would say, nearly impossible.
Well,
you don't have to have a shop also. A Kirana seller will keep tobacco products. He still does that. He keeps the raw tobacco leaves, and then he keeps that tuna, and everybody makes their own smokeless something to put into the mouth. How can you stop that?
Yeah, that's the irony. See, tobacco products are available, but the treatment for tobacco is not available. Even in the branded pharmacies, it is not available. That's the irony. Even if somebody wants to quit also, that's not available. That's the problem.
That's a tragedy, yes.
Practically, there are going to be problems enforcing this law, definitely.
Yeah, it's not enough that it's to ban smoking, but it's also very important to rehabilitate and rescue.
Yes, I totally agree. Thank you, Dr. Aruna. And there was one question which has been posed on our forum. So if a street vendor is going to be selling his stuff from a stool, where does he hide the tobacco products under this?
Under the tarpaulin. He has to cover it with a sheet or a towel.
No, he has to get the license to sell it. Actually, he should get a license to sell. And he should maintain to whom the records to whom he is selling.
Yeah, in an ideal scenario, that should work. Definitely, as Dr. Vikas had pointed out, there are going to be practical challenges. You're not going to ask for the ID proof for every
we
customer.
have to ask, because
that is why this is the first
that's how
step.
Liquor is sold outside, not here.
True. That is why I say that this is the first step. It might be a baby step. It might not. It might have several practical challenges. But definitely, it is the first step, and I personally feel that it is a step in the right direction.
But alcohol abroad also, the shopkeeper just sees your age proof and sells you. He doesn't keep your particulars.
Because
tobacco,
the particulars are already there, sir. Because at a state level, they maintain the particulars. Here, we need an Aadhaar card. We need an Aadhaar card.
You can show an Aadhaar card and take it.
Yes.
But for tobacco, there's no age outside also. Yes, children can't buy it. See, but yes, adults don't
we
have
also
to
have another problem. When we are banning something, there's an outgrowth of another industry. So whenever we are focusing on tobacco, there is increase on alcohol. And that's what happened. And that too, it happens when you are banning something. So a huge ban occurred for liquor, and now every second house has a license to sell liquor. Now, it has. We have more in Telangana. We have more liquor shops, and that's the problem. And Telangana was leading for liquor ban.
Yes,
another thing that came to my mind. Just hearing everybody right now, this act has, like Dr. Aruna said, this act has nothing in it to, they say, ban, stop, curtail, everything. But what is there in the act for promotion of harm reduction?
Yes.
There is nothing in the act.
Yes.
They talk,
I would say
about
that
the quit line and quit line and the national quit line and SMS services for quitting. Does that actually work at any level?
all right. So the Act also touches upon the establishment of laboratories that would test the amount of nicotine and tar in each of these tobacco products. Now, why I would say
Yes,
that is
Dr.
relevant?
Prem, yes. After diagnosis, what? What
Yeah.
next? You need a
So,
treatment,
okay,
right?
so
But treatment
yes,
is not available.
yeah. So
my thing is a laboratory, fine. There's one cigarette brand. You've got 50 cigarette brands. Now they'll be testing once. They're not testing every day.
no. I didn't mean that. You have to replace a cigarette that has greater nicotine and tar content with another cigarette that has lesser nicotine and tar
Fine.
content.
It's a one-time thing.
Okay, I meant if you are going to devise nicotine replacement strategies, if you're going to prescribe any nicotine replacement gums or lozenges, you need to dose that, right? At least for cigarettes, you have some equivalent dose to dose. I mean, while devising a regimen, say one cigarette is equivalent to 1 milligram of nicotine. For smokeless tobacco, you don't know what is there in that. So if you're going to, offer nicotine replacement to your clients, you need to know how much nicotine he is consuming in the first place. So that is nicotine replacement is of course a harm reduction measure, right? So now when you know the amount of nicotine is consuming, offer the same amount of nicotine and devise a replacement regimen. At least that is going to help the clinicians in offering, some reliable method to, address the withdrawal and craving of patients who want to wean themselves away from tobacco products.
Okay, now you said that. Now there's a person who eats a handful of tobacco, raw tobacco with the tuna thing, and he eats that in 6 hours. He goes out of town and then he buys pouches, which he's consuming 50 pouches in 6 hours. So what are you, how are you going to, he says, once I get that raw tobacco, second time I get a pouch, the third time I get something else. Again, you can't be at every shop.
Definitely,
there are limitations for the
definitely there are limitations, but I would say this is a small step. The first step, I would say, there is going to be practical challenges and limitations. There are, of course, going to be such cases, that is beyond our control. That will not be covered by the Act.
Yes.
But at least it makes an effort, right?
Yeah. So I think
and those tests also need to be done within a period of the actually smoke or consumption has occurred. So
I think that's a
window period.
Yeah. So I think that's a very valid point that is raised. Yeah. I think that's a very valid point raised by both Dr. Prem and Dr. Vikas regarding that. So I think, looking at harm reduction per se, so there will be multiple challenges and there's no one size fits all approach. That is the whole concept. You can't say that everybody has to quit cold turkey. You can't say that everybody has to use a patch. You are providing multiple options and it depends on what suits what person. Somebody using smokeless tobacco may be much more happy with snus or with a lozenge.
Or chewing tobacco or chewing chewing gum.
Chewing gum, yes. But chewing gum, yes. So as long as they're trained how to use it, so those things can happen. So there are some more. There are actually some more. We have got some queries from the audience. So there's one query which says, what do we say about banning smoking zones at airports under the new amendments? Apart from troubling and inconveniencing current smokers, how does this help?
It's going to create more irritated passengers.
That's only for smokers, of course. I would like to ask Dr. Aruna and Dr. Prem also.
Banning actually is always welcome in public places. So, see, if somebody is aware of the ban, they have to prepare themselves about the withdrawal syndromes, because that is where the help-seeking behavior comes. Because when you are compelled to do something, so you look for other alternatives, or how you just go for a consultation. I think that's good. I think.
No, but at the airport there are smoking zones. So there's a designated specific area which is a closed room. So it's not a public place.
Now they want to shut that down.
When you shut that down, seriously, at the airport, just think about it. A smoker who is going to be at the airport for about 3-4 hours and another couple of hours on the flight, and then another 15-20 minutes, half an hour getting out of the airport, a smoker without a cigarette for 5 hours is going to be as irritated as a bee in a bonnet.
Okay. Just to clarify, in the earlier COTPA, smoking was banned just in public places, but it could be done in designated areas, designated smoking zones. Now, in the amendment, has it been banned in just airports or everywhere? Designated areas are banned everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
Restaurants, offices, all closed spaces. So.
Okay.
So
all right.
Now domestic violence will increase probably.
So that sort of impinges on the personal choice. At least, I mean, in public places, if you smoke, of course, you're going to impinge on the right to health of another person because you're going to give out second-hand smoke. But if it's going to be designated closed areas, then, well, that was actually a good part of the earlier COTPA. Perhaps that could have been retained.
As Kiran has pointed out, it is like slowly throttling the smokers' rights and their habits. It's not like totally banning, but slowly they are closing on. This is, I think, one move in that direction.
Yes, but then see, you're actually making, if you just think about it realistically, pushing people towards quitting never helps. They have to want to quit. I'm sure Dr. Prem will agree with me. You can't compel somebody to quit. So when this kind of ad hoc bans, or you stop people from any of their spaces, they are going to be violations of the law. They're going to try to sneak us. They're actually going to try to sneak us smoke somewhere, or they're going to go out and do it. So it's basically creating a new class of criminals.
Yes, encouraging crime.
Yeah. So I think that is something we should be looking at. What is the alternative? So you're not making any sort of NRT subsidized. You're not making NRT part of the essential list of medicines. You're not making it available. So what is the alternative? There is no alternative. So you either quit, or you pay the fine, or you go to jail.
Okay.
Fines have been made a lot heftier.
So in the designated places, we must make NRT available for that period.
Ma'am, again, the thing is, a quitter will only quit when he wants to quit.
Exactly.
Whatever you do, you make it available in his house, you make it available in his hand. If he doesn't want to quit, he will not quit.
Yes, the approach is actually moved on from a directive approach where the therapist, tells you to quit or tells you what to do. It has moved more to a conversational approach, where you understand the needs of the patient, you sort of nudge the patient, you sort of motivate the patient rather than telling the patient what to do. So the approach has drastically shifted from the 70s and 80s to the present day.
But
all right.
It is the patients. No, will they agree to that?
Yes, the present approach here is to respect the patient's individual choice. Even if the patient tells you that I don't want to quit, you're just wasting my time, you still respect the patient's choice. And you just tell him, all right, if ever you want to quit, I will be available here, whatever time and so and so time I will be available. Meanwhile, here are a few pamphlets that you can read. You can come back to me anytime. I'll always be available. So respect for patient's choice is given primacy these days. So even if the patient doesn't want to quit, well, you respect his individual choice. You don't confront that any longer. You are expected to roll with resistance rather than confronting the resistance head on. So that is the approach that therapists are advised or are trained to follow these days.
Yes. So there's actually one more query on the internet. This is about going back to the age question. So when the limit was 18 years of age, did no teen below 18 smoke?
Well, you cannot go for the extremes. You cannot go for the extremes. Now let's compare what happened in GATS 1 and GATS 2. Now, between GATS 1 and GATS 2, there was a positive trend where prevalence of both smoking and smokeless forms of tobacco decreased. In fact, in the age group of minors between 15 to 17, there was nearly a 6% decrease in prevalence. In GATS 1, it was 10%, 15 to 17 smoking forms of tobacco. Yeah, if I remember correctly. It has gone down to 4% in GATS 2. So there was a positive trend. Again, the age of initiation of tobacco use between GATS 1 and GATS 2 had also increased by at least 1 year. That is again a positive trend. So you cannot go to the extremes. You cannot
say 13 to 14, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, 15 to 17.
No, it was 13 earlier, then became 14. I mean, I'll have to go back and check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just go back and check that.
Yes. So the point again is,
so you're saying 13 to 14 is the age group, is it? 13 to 14
initiation. Age of initiation was 13. It went to 14.
Yeah, okay. For smoking, it was different, and smokeless, it was different.
Smokeless, it was different. Yes.
It was different. So for both the forms, it had increased by at least 1 year. So it is still a positive trend. So we have to look at the trends rather than looking at the extremes while formulating policies. There are always going to be outliers and exceptions. If you're going to focus on that, then we cannot really move ahead.
I totally agree. But problem is, see, GATS also, if you look at the trends from GATS 1 to GATS 2, so if I remember correctly, so 28.6 is the total prevalence of tobacco use in India as per GATS 2. And GATS 1, it was 34.6. So 6 percentage points is what has fallen in 7 years.
7 years.
7 years in between GATS 1 and GATS 2, 6 percentage points we have fallen down. Government claims 17% reduction in prevalence rate. It's a relative reduction. If you look at it, if you break it down further, 81 lakh people quit for good. 81 lakh or 8.1 million people quit for good out of a total of 267 million. Okay. And we are getting awards for this. If you look
at and what is the population increase started smoking?
Listen. So every year, if you look at it, if you break it down further every year, it's about 1.15 million per year, which translates to 0.43% of the entire pool of tobacco users. So every year, less than 0.5% success rate in quitting with the existing approaches. Every year. 99.5% failure rate.
Okay.
So I think it's high time we do something different. COTPA, hopefully with the few of these things, like for example, age limits, yes, I think we can be able to support a higher age limit. But again, it needs enforcement. Without enforcement, all this is meaningless. There are a few things which are not that great. I mean, if you look at the small traders, if you look at the small shop, they've all taken major hits during the pandemic. Now it's going to affect their livelihood directly. So either you take a brave step and you say that you can no longer sell tobacco in this country so that you can, stop everything and find something else.
That will help indirectly the small vendors.
Yes. But this way, what's going to happen is slowly it's just throttling everything down. And then as time goes by, it's going to get more and more difficult to extricate ourselves from the situation. Regarding the same thing, so there was a very nice comment. It said that it's very vital for our government to do a deep dive and nip the bud at the roots. Start by banning smoke shops in a 300-meter radius of a school, playground, etc. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, the distance has been increased from 100 yards to 100 meters now. That small, but definitely a step, in the positive side. Yes, I think increasing the distance reduces the accessibility for young students. Students, especially in education institutions, are prone to peer pressure, which is an established risk factor for substance use, including tobacco. And 300 meters, practically, how far it does reduce the access, that is another question. But definitely, it does make it more difficult to access. So I would say, moving on from 100 yards to 100 meters, I would say it's a small but a positive step. Doesn't make a big difference as such. Nobody, is going to find it difficult to walk an extra 9 meters. But still, you can probably enforce. Increase it further in the future and make accessibility more difficult. At least that is the idea behind it.
300 meters would mean approximately a 1 kilometer radius from every school. Now,
you have 1,000 meters.
No, 300
Talking about the
diameter.
Oh yeah, 600 meters.
Across the diameter. That's 600 meters. Half a kilometer from each school. When you start going, you'll be covering the whole city in one go. No cigarette shops in the city.
What about e-marketing? Like suppose Instamart. Now, are these products available in InstaSmart or something?
Cigarette?
Online market?
No, they're not supposed to be available. Tobacco products are not supposed to be available.
Legally.
Although other products like lighters, ashtrays, and even the rolling papers, they are all available, but not tobacco products as such.
Yes. So there's one more sort of point which has crept into this draft. So I just want to discuss that. So there's one, it's somewhere in the back pages. So it says that the government can give a notification with 3 months notice, and it can add or omit any of the specific tobacco products from the purview of this act. So add is fine, but I think omit is a problematic thing, isn't it?
All right.
They are keeping their options open. When the farmers start agitating, they're going to omit the smokeless tobacco wala part of it. Because they're going to say livelihood gone. So fine, vote ban gone, get it back into, omit it out.
Looking at some less harmful products, or is it
that is being the positive side of it? Yeah. That they might be looking at some less harmful products, but after having seen the way it has the government is doing things, less harmful doesn't seem to be something that they're looking into. They would be keeping their options open so that when the election time comes, whoever is agitating will be given the advantage of the act.
I think that move should be towards less harmful products, probably.
It should. Let's hope it is.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope it's on the positive side.
Yes.
And also there is another important aspect to that. If a state government enacts a law, if it wants to ban cigarettes completely or ban any tobacco products completely, that would take precedence over COTPA. So that should be borne in mind. So if any local law bans a tobacco product outright, now that would take precedence over COTPA. So that is another aspect here that we need to remember.
They've also tried to add to the sort of fines and punishments for the
that's true. Okay.
For all the trade in illicit cigarettes, which is a big problem. When you raise taxes, you do get a thriving underground market.
That's true. So I think they've been exorbitantly raised. It was earlier it used to be 100, 200 rupees, and now it's been raised to 2,000 rupees for violations for consumers, and for sellers, it's been raised to as high as 50,000 rupees with 7 years imprisonment. When you look at the punishment and the fines, they're really quite severe. Well, on one side, you could argue that higher fines could possibly pose a deterrent. Is there any other countries where levying such high fines actually worked in de-addiction, Dr. Kiran? Any other countries that you know of?
Not offhand, no. I'll have to ask Dr. Aruna.
Okay.
No, actually, I'm not aware of it. But see, coming to this licensing part, most of the tobacco products, I think they are available with the small vendors only. And if you are without license, now what will happen to the livelihood of those who are making a living out of it? So only 4% are working in a factory, but 96% are working from home, making or rolling out BDs. And out of that, 84% are women. So all these women workers are, they will be losing their livelihood, and they will be not able to care for their health. So that is one aspect which is going to affect the women BD rollers and the women empowerment. It was looked earlier as a women empowerment, where they wanted to bring out like against the social stigmas of Devdasis in Telangana. So this has become one of the Women Empowerment Act. Like they are rolling out BDs now.
And these BDs that they roll at home,
yes,
then they are given to some company who packages them and sells them.
Not necessarily a packaged one. It's a locally circulated product.
Okay.
So somebody
but
comes,
some amount will be. So now what is going to happen is that these big companies are going to take licenses of villages. That we have a village rolling facility at this address and registered. They will register it, and the price of the BD will go up slightly or whatever. But they'll register those areas or those local areas, and they'll just register them and they'll take the BD from them. Simple as that. It's going to be a very easy workaround for that. But sir, Dr. Prem, what you said, any country has it. I don't think any country has it. But the fines that that have come up in this puts tobacco into the same league as hard drugs, because 7-year imprisonment and 50,000 as fine is equivalent to something like afim, marijuana, and cocaine also. That comes into the 7-year imprisonment rule. So if they're going to put tobacco into the same thing, I don't think it's going to.
Well, definitely, we have historical precedents as well when prohibitive laws have actually pushed, substance use underground. Well, we had the prohibitive era in the United States where alcohol was banned, and then we had this moonshine epidemic, and eventually they decided that, well, we might as well sell that legally and prevent all these health consequences of illicit liquor, and we can also gain from taxes. So yes, on one hand, you could argue that such exorbitant fines would act as a deterrent, perhaps. Something, it would perhaps not be an apples to apples comparison. In Motor Vehicles Act, for instance, recently drunk driving has also been is being charged with exorbitant amounts, and at least the government does claim that the incidence has decreased, and infractions of motor vehicle violations have also decreased because they've started charging exorbitant fines. So perhaps you could argue the same could apply here as well, but definitely that's a very valid concern, and even news reports have emerged that such prohibitive laws could push the substance underground. And as Dr. Vikas rightly suggested, that it could push them in the same league as hard drugs. That is a very valid concern. So here again, the question of enforcement arises: how far the government is able to crack down or on such illicit stuff.
If so enforcement should happen, it should have happened just at the local shops, and teen smoking or teen smokeless tobacco use would go down 100%. It's just enforcement. Enforcement, you put it at the local shop. No under 18 can buy tobacco product. Simple as that.
Well, if that was the case, almost all the laws would be,
yeah, exactly.
Would have achieved their end goals and purpose. We would have been living in a perfect world. But just looking at the intention, I would say that the intention here is to force a deterrent. Maybe, yeah. So it does act as a deterrent, right? The fear of having to pay exorbitant fines, that could actually promote ambivalence or hesitation. That is the intention behind the law.
Smugglers won't be deterred by it. Smugglers will still smuggle through Myanmar and through the Northeast. That's where all the cigarettes are coming from. The imported cigarettes are coming from that area. So when that's a smuggler's job to do.
That's true. Yeah, but always. Yeah, then we can not have prisons or jails or anything. We can the entire society would be free of such people. But that's not the case, right? So we just have to look at the trends, how it progresses, and we have to wait and watch for that, I would say.
Okay. Would you want to make any specific, would you have liked to see anything specific added to this time amendment?
It does make use of prohibition of smokeless forms of tobacco as well in public places, but It does not explicitly mention spitting or other behaviors associated with smokeless forms. Perhaps they could be more overt and explicit regarding that, because that also can result in transmission of communicable disease, especially under since we are living in the fear of COVID, the times of COVID. Perhaps they could be more elaborate on that. They could have focused more on smokeless forms as well. Perhaps that would be perhaps a limitation of this amendment, I would say. And as we had discussed earlier, perhaps the designated areas could have been retained, because they are not going to impinge on the rights of non-smokers. It's just a bunch of smokers getting together in an enclosed area and having a smoke. Well, that is their choice. It is, of course, not desirable, but still we respect their individual choice. So perhaps the designated areas could have been retained. Any other opinions?
Yeah, I would like to add on a cashless insurance for quitters.
Okay.
So whatever now for diagnosis and for treatment.
And they should also be followed up with probably alternate livelihoods for these BD roller women, as Madam suggested.
Yes, yes.
And for even tobacco farmers for that instance.
Social ambassadors. We need social ambassadors, not only physicians, but also we need social ambassadors.
Okay.
We need empowered army to address this problem.
Maybe measures to compensate tobacco farmers for their losses.
Yes.
Yeah. So that should be a natural corollary of this amendment, I would say.
Yes.
I would have maybe wanted to see more for the actual harm reduction part of it. That this act should have taken care of reduced harm products as well as promotion of reduced harm products, instead of just an absolute that never works. So something as an alternative to a present smoker or a tobacco chewer should have come into this act, and that should have been, to my mind, the way forward.
Yeah, that is very valid.
I think for my wish list, I think I would also endorse what Dr. Vikas said, that we would like to see harm reduction as more of an integral part of our country's anti-tobacco policies. Apart from that, you look at the NRTs, I think they should be subsidized. They are not in reach of the common man. And if you look at the people who use BDs, you look at the people who use all the SLTs, they can't afford it. So why can't we subsidize it when you're not raising the prices of BDs?
Make it freely available.
Absolutely agree.
They should have a cashless insurance. That's what I'm telling.
For the
products and for the treatment.
But that is for those whom that is like an incentive to quit.
Yes.
I'm talking about, let's say, those people who need some time to think, or those who can be sort of transition to reduced risk products. So for those also, we should have some options.
Yes, alternative products. Yes,
alternative products should be there.
Product. Yes,
absolutely.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
Ma'am, again, as I would say, an ex-user, quitting initially seems to be, yes, I can quit. I'll quit for 7 days. I'll quit for 15 days, and then a person goes back to tobacco. So if something is subsidized, if something is easily available to that person, then maybe quitting for a longer period would be an easier thing. If he's going to buy, let's say, a chewing gum, which is going to cost him 50 rupees a day, instead of buying a tobacco pouch, which is going to cost him 20 rupees a day, that person is going to go back to tobacco, taking into account his financial situation also. Why should I spend 50 rupees when I can make do with 20? So that 20 has to be equitable. That chewing gum or those lozenges or the snus has to come into this range of 20. Let's say a tobacco pouch consumption is 20 rupees. This should be 25. Then to get that person to quit for a better life, that 5 rupees won't matter. He might work extra for it. But if it's 20 and 50, he'll say, 50, let it be. I'll go 20 only. 30 rupees, I'll feed my family with it.
So they have actually tried one of these things in the UK. So in the UK, they had a program for pregnant women who were smoking. So if they could demonstrate that they had quit smoking, they would get vouchers to be used for baby clothes and baby products. They would do a urinary cotinine test to check whether they're really quit. So I think that is really sort of you're actually
incentivizing positive behavior,
absolutely,
positive reinforcement.
And I think that would work. So why can't we have something like that in our country?
Yeah, good, right? Good. Yeah.
So that is one thing I would like to see, and I would also like to see the focus has to be shifted away from cigarettes. Okay, it's a noble thing to go after cigarettes, yes, but it's 10% of the total tobacco users. What about the remaining 90%? Do they not matter? Just because they're poor and just because you can't go to their villages doesn't mean that you don't have to focus all your efforts on the urban. Cigarettes, yes, they're bad, yes, but so are BDs. BDs are worse. Why are you not looking at that? BDs don't even have warnings. So that is something I would definitely want to see, where you're actually treating the most dangerous products with the sort of much more stringent measures that you have reserved so far for cigarettes. So I think there should be an equal focus based on the scope of the problem, based on the magnitude of the problem that we face in India. Not just, looking at, because I think, most of it is a result of the sort of directly adopting the Western frameworks, Western policies. That is the biggest problem. So we have just taken what they're doing over there. So everywhere it is mainly cigarettes. So we have directly cut, copy, pasted over here and hoping that it works. So
we are not using our own brains over it. The local problem is not being addressed. It's like just follow the leader, be in the good books of the leaders. That's about it.
So anything, so any closing thoughts? I think we are nearly at time. Any sort of closing thoughts, anybody? Dr. Prem, we'll start with you.
Yeah, all right. So overall, I would say that the amendments were done keeping the right intentions in mind. There are going to be practical challenges. Enforcement is going to be a question. But I would give the benefit of the doubt to the policymakers and would say that it is a step in the right direction, keeping best intentions in mind. And that would be my closing thoughts on that.
Dr. Aruna?
Yes, so alternate products have to be in the market. They have to be, so the industry, the manufacturing industry need to have some welfare schemes. There should be incentives for the manufacturing industry to contribute to welfare schemes. And that's how we make this problem inclusive, not exclusive. And I think we can reduce the criminal attitudes which we have discussed earlier.
Thank you. Dr. Vikas?
I would like to see that tobacco harm comes into the act in some way to promote harm reduction instead of just saying stop everything, ban everything. And as Dr. Prem said, designated areas needs to be gotten back into this act, because you can't stop every designated area. Then people are going to be, I don't know how it's going to work. Designated areas need to be there. In hotels also, in airports specifically, for travelers, it's going to become difficult for them. It's going to be really a lot of irritated passengers. One alcoholic on an aircraft can create a ruckus. Just imagine 20 smokers doing the same thing.
Yes. Okay. So, I mean, it was a very nice and diverse points of view. Thank you, Dr. Prem. Thank you, Dr. Aruna. Thank you, Dr. Vikas. So I think,
thank
you. So let's do more of this. Let's also, I mean, I would be very happy to take some suggestions from the audience, whatever, if you feel that we should address something more, we are more than happy for that. We are also going to be sort of doing this on a regular basis again. So we are restarting from next month and hope to see you around the World Vaping Day and the World No Tobacco Day, which is 30th of May and 31st of May, respectively. Okay. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.